My brother slept with my fiancé for half a year. My family said to forgive, so I vanished. I thought my family would support me after such a brutal betrayal, but when they chose him, I realized I had to disappear forever. I stared at the ring sitting on the nightstand, and I felt like I was suffocating because the person I was supposed to marry was currently in the next room with my brother. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a fit. I just stood there in the hallway of the beach house we'd rented for the family reunion, listening to the muffled laughter and the whispers that weren't meant for my ears. My name is Leo, and until 5 minutes ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I had a high-paying job in tech, a beautiful fiancée named Claire, and a brother Derek, who was my best friend. I was wrong. So incredibly wrong. I walked to the door. My hand trembled as it touched the brass handle. I wanted to turn back. I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard Claire's specific high-pitched giggle, the one she only used when she was truly happy. But I pushed the door open anyway, and the world stopped turning. Derek looked up first. He didn't even look guilty. He just looked annoyed, like I'd interrupted a private meeting. Claire scrambled for the sheets, her eyes wide, but the silence in the room was louder than any apology she could have offered. "Leo," she gasped. "It's not what it looks like." That's the line, right? The classic cheater's anthem. But I wasn't listening. I was looking at my brother, the man I'd bailed out of jail twice, the man whose rent I'd paid for 3 years when he found himself. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded like it was coming from someone else, someone far away. Derek sat up and reached for a cigarette on the nightstand. 6 months, man, give or take. 6 months. They'd been doing this while we were picking out flower arrangements, while we were tasting wedding cakes, while I was holding her hand at my mother's birthday dinner. I turned around and walked out. I thought that was the worst part, but I was wrong. I went straight to the main house. My parents were there, sitting on the porch, drinking wine and watching the sunset. They looked so peaceful, so family-oriented. "Leo, what's wrong?" my mother asked, setting her glass down. I told them. I spilled everything. The beach house, the room, the 6 months of lies. I expected fire. I expected my father to get up and throw Derek out of the family. Instead, he just sighed. "Leo, son," he said, leaning back in his wicker chair. "People make mistakes. Derek has always been impulsive. You know this." I blinked. "Impulsive? He's been sleeping with my fiancé for half a year, Dad. And Claire is young," my mother added, her voice soft and patronizing. "She got confused, but she loves you, Leo. We've already put the deposit down on the venue. Think about the family's reputation. Just get over it. Forgive him." I felt a coldness settle in my chest, a deep, crystalline freeze that started at my toes and moved to my heart. "Forgive him?" I whispered. "We're blood," my father said, as if that explained everything. "Blood is thicker than a little bit of drama. Don't make a scene. We'll talk to them, tell them to stop, and we can all move on." That was the moment. The moment I realized I didn't have a family. I had a group of people who shared my DNA and valued optics over my soul. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. "You're right," I said. My parents smiled, relieved. They thought they'd managed me. They thought I was the stable one who would always take the hit for the team. "I'm going to go for a walk," I told them. I went to my car. But I didn't go for a walk. I drove. I drove back to the city. I went to the apartment Claire and I shared, the apartment I paid for. I packed a single suitcase, just the essentials, my passport, my birth certificate, a few photos of my grandmother, the only person in that family who actually had a heart. I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out my laptop. I had been the one managing the family's trust. I was the one who handled the investments for my father's business. I knew every password, every offshore account, every legal loophole. I didn't steal their money. I'm not a criminal, but I did something much worse. I uncoupled myself. I liquidated my own shares, legally. I moved my personal savings to an untraceable account in the Caymans. I resigned from my job via a predated email that would send at 8 a.m. the next morning. Then I looked at the wedding invitation sitting in a box by the door. I took a lighter from the counter and set them on fire in the sink. As the flames turned the expensive cardstock to ash, I felt a strange sense of peace. I thought that was the end, but it wasn't. Because what I did next shocked everyone. I didn't just leave town. I disappeared. I sold my car for cash to a guy in a parking lot. I smashed my phone and threw it into the river. I bought a bus ticket to a city I'd never visited, under a name I'd made up on the spot. I wanted to see how long it would take for them to realize I wasn't coming back. The first few days were the hardest. I stayed in a cheap motel, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the phantom vibration of a phone that wasn't there. I kept imagining their faces. Derek, probably laughing about how Leo will eventually come around. Claire, probably crying fake tears to my mother. My parents, planning the wedding as if nothing had happened. But by day 7, the silence became my best friend. I was a ghost. No one knew where I was. No one knew who I was. I moved to a small town in Oregon, a place where the fog rolls in off the coast and hides everything. I got a job under the table at a local marina, fixing boat engines. It was dirty, physical work. It was perfect. 6 months passed. I was leaner, stronger. My hands were calloused. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man who used to wear Italian suits and worry about quarterly earnings. But curiosity is a poison. One night, I went to a library in the next town over. I sat at a public computer and searched for my own name. The headlines hit me like a physical blow. Tech mogul vanishes. Foul play suspected. Family pleads for return of missing son. I clicked on a video link. It was a news segment. My mother was standing in front of a microphone, dabbing covering her eyes with a silk handkerchief. My father stood behind her, looking older, his face etched with a stress I'd never seen before. And there were Derek and Claire. They were standing together, holding hands. "We just want him home," Derek said to the camera. His voice sounded shaky, but I knew him better than anyone. He wasn't sad. He was scared. I did a little more digging. It turned out that when I uncoupled my investments, I'd triggered a series of audits. My father's business, the one I'd been quietly propping up for years, was collapsing. Without my management, they were drowning in debt they didn't even know they had. They didn't miss me. They missed my utility. And that's when I saw the real kicker. Claire was pregnant. The dates were public. She was 7 months along. The math was simple. The baby was Derek's. They were living in my apartment. They were using my furniture. They were trying to build a life on the ruins of mine. I thought I would be angry. I thought I'd want to go back and burn it all down. But I just felt nothing. I closed the browser and walked out into the cool Oregon night. I felt lighter than air. I thought that was the end of the story. But there was one more revelation waiting for me. A month later, a man showed up at the marina. He wasn't a local. He wore a suit that cost more than the boat I was working on. He was a private investigator. "Leo?" he asked. I didn't deny it. "What was the point?" "Your father is dying," the man said. "Heart failure. He's been asking for you. He says he needs to make things right." I looked at the water. I thought about the boy who used to look up to his father. The boy who thought family was a sacred bond. "Tell him," I said, wiping grease off my hands with a rag. "Tell him I've already moved on, just like he told me to." The investigator looked surprised. "He wants to leave you the estate. Everything. If you just come home and sign the papers." "Give it to Derek," I said. "He's always been the favorite. Let him handle the debt. Let him handle the mess." I walked away and didn't look back. I heard later that Derek and Claire got married in a courthouse. No beach house. No expensive venue. My father passed away a week later, leaving behind a mountain of lawsuits and a bankrupt legacy. Derek and Claire lost the apartment. They lost the cars. They finally got exactly what they deserved. Each other. I'm still in Oregon. I have a small house on the cliffside. I have a dog. I have a woman named Maya who loves me for the man I am now, not the man I was then. Sometimes I look at the old ring, the one I kept in my pocket for all these months. I walked to the edge of the pier yesterday and finally tossed it into the Pacific. I watched it sink, a tiny glint of gold disappearing into the deep blue. I thought I was losing my life when I found them in that room, but it turns out I was just finally starting it. They told me to get over it, and honestly, it was the best advice they ever gave me. The only way to truly win against people who don't value you is to become someone they can no longer reach. If you've ever had to choose yourself over a toxic family, let me know your story in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more life-changing stories.